In this evening's news, Caribbean Examination Council says that the CSEC and CAPE examinations will be administered in July, as previously announced. Ministry of Health and Wellness says it will improve the quality of service being offered at its isolation and quarantine facilities in St. Anne, following concerns posted on social media by families of individuals in quarantine. Still tonight, 5 of the co-accused who appeared before the Manchester Parish Court earlier today found guilty. 2 accused is set free. And Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says payments are to begin in short order under the government's Set Cash and Care programs. Good evening. We begin with breaking news tonight as Jamaica has now recorded 511 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Jamaica. 2 new cases have been recorded in the last 24 hours and there have been 121 recoveries to date. The 2 new cases are both women from Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine respectively. One case is a 20-year-old employee in the workplace cluster in St. Catherine, and the other is a 45-year-old and is a contact of a locally transmitted, not epidemiologically linked case. In other news tonight, the Caribbean Examinations Council says it is sticking by its agenda that the CSEC and the CAPE examinations will be administered in July as previously announced. Earlier this week, Minister with responsibility for education Carl Samuda said that Jamaica could not endorse the decision by its CARICOM partners for the examinations to be held in July. But CXC's registrar, Dr. Wayne Wesley, says the examination will be held in accordance with national health protocols on social distancing, sanitization, and the wearing of masks. Still in news tonight, Shadow Minister of Education Peter Bunting says he is demanding that the government not equivocate regarding the matter of Jamaican students sitting CSEC and CAPE examinations in July. Mr. Bunting, in a statement released earlier today, said that the Caribbean Examinations Council has made its position clear that it is moving forward with the CSEC and CAPE exams, digital or paper-based, in July of this year, as was determined at the CARICOM COSOD meeting in which Jamaica participated. Now, the government of Jamaica, through Minister Carl Samuda, declared that Jamaica does not endorse that position due to the impact of COVID-19 on the education sector. Mr. Bunting says Minister Samuda has provided no alternative solution, outlining that the Jamaican cohort of students and their parents and teachers who had expected to sit CSEC and CAPE exams this year are now left to grapple with an uncertain future. Mr. Bunting added that we must do our best to prepare our children to persevere through challenges and to mitigate the impact of disasters, to allow CSEC students from other islands and other nations generally to move ahead along their productive journey and disadvantage our own students is unforgivable. The repercussions of such a visionless approach, he said, would have a long-term negative impact on this cohort's career prospects. In other news tonight, in response to the Caribbean Examination Council's sticking by its July date for the CXC and CAPE exams, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, Owen Speed, says some teachers are against the decision taken by the council.
Some educators are for the decision, some are against it, but I just want to encourage all of us to spend some time and sit and look at what is in front of us. The first thing I'd like to say is that when we closed schools, initially, we only had 1 case in Jamaica, and at this time we have hundreds of cases in Jamaica. We didn't have a single child who had the virus when we closed schools. Now, as we are seeing it, we have 90+ children who have contracted the virus. Hence, we have to really take a deep and serious, in-depth look at what is in front of us. July is just weeks away from now. And if we are contemplating having this sitting of the multiple choice paper, and by the way, may I say that multiple choice tests at this time, in terms of the children at this age level, will not give you much more substance to the overall picture of the CSEC exams. And I dare anybody to contradict me when I say to them, CXC is simply just looking out for the business opportunity and looking at the business side of things rather than looking at the children's safety. Some educators
Mr.
are
Speed
for the
further
decision,
stated that
some are
given the
against.
need for social distancing and proper monitoring of students after they leave exam centers, it is not ideal to move ahead with the exams at this time.
The truth is that when our children are traveling to school, most of them travel by public transportation. Hence, there's going to be bundling, there's going to be situations where social distancing will not be observed. And we can't get around that. When school is dismissed, who is going to take control of those children to ensure that they do the right thing? There's going to be no one after those children leave the compound of those schools and leave those exam centers in between that time and when they get back home. It is true to say too that more than 50 of our children in the 10 to 19 age group have contracted the virus. And we don't want a situation where you're going to have those children taking back that virus into their homes, because many of the youngsters, the teenagers, are asymptomatic. But the truth is that they can spread the virus to other people around them. And as far as I am concerned, I am looking at safety first. So the decision that they took to carry through with this exam, that decision was taken on the behalf of just about 25% of the children, the total number of children who would have been sitting the exam in July. So I think it is foolhardy to think that within weeks, Jamaica will be ready to sit these exams under the guise of getting through a multiple choice test. Fact of the matter is that a multiple choice test at this time will not add a lot of value, because in any instance you will be eliminating the paper 2, which is the more significant component of the exams anyway.
The JTA's president added that Jamaica cannot afford a resurgence of COVID-19.
Let good sense prevail, and at the end of it all, everyone should benefit, because Jamaica can ill afford a resurgence of the COVID virus at this time. So why put our children at risk? Why put the country at risk to have them leaving the safety of their homes to get out there and risk getting the virus and transmitting it to other people around them?
Still making Mellow TV news, Shadow Minister on Health Dr. Morais Guy says he is appalled at reports of the alleged inhumane treatment of Jamaicans in state-designated quarantine facilities, particularly at the Bahia Principe Hotel in Runaway Bay, St. Anne. The Shadow Minister on Health says first-hand reports from persons at the facility paint a picture of inhumane conditions being endured by ordinary Jamaicans under the government's mandatory quarantine order. The Shadow Minister says that he is reminding the government that the persons in these state facilities are there in accordance with the government's own protocols and should not be treated in this crude and undignified fashion. In other news, the Ministry of Health and Wellness says it is moving forward to improve the quality of service being offered at its isolation and quarantine facilities in the parish of St. Anne, following the concerns posted on social media by families of individuals in quarantine. The Jamaicans that returned on Wednesday from the United States and Canada under the Controlled Re-Entry Program expressed that they have been encountering a number of difficulties at their quarantine locations. These difficulties relate primarily to delays in the admission process at the quarantine facility and the lack of timely provision of meals. Among the list of complaints are the poor quality of food, the perceived treatment by workers, and the sanitization of the facility. Minister Christopher Tufton, while visiting the quarantine facility yesterday, says he got a first-hand view of the situation.
Today I traveled to St. Anne, where I visited two of our quarantine and isolation facilities, the Jewel's Paradise Cove and the Bay Principe Hotel, one hosting 120 persons, another 350. I wanted to speak to management to see what is happening on the ground. There have been some complaints, so I wanted to get some further details on the source of the concerns by those who are staying here, and to decide how we can alleviate or address some of the issues. Some of the concerns including, meal preparation, timeliness of delivery, but some of those concerns too are born out of the frustration that persons have to be isolated or quarantined when they're really not accustomed to it. And it does affect their psychological state, their state of mind, which is very understandable.
Dr. Tufton further stated that there are some measures that have to be taken to correct some of the issues expressed.
I think that there are some measures that have to be taken to correct some of those issues, and some of the decisions we took today include increasing the staff numbers so persons can be dedicated to meal serving, laundry, including some lines that persons can call to get counseling or to answer queries, and also some workout sessions that can be done where persons remain on their balconies in the quadrangle, just to give them some activities so that they can overcome the boredom and the depression of just being isolated for an extended period of time. So I think it will get better, and we're going to work on it over the next couple of days.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness also issued a video statement on the circumstances under which Jamaicans who recently returned to the island under the government's controlled re-entry program are being housed under quarantine and isolation protocols. In his message, Prime Minister Holness firstly apologized to every returning citizen who has had to endure less than favorable conditions, and outlined that the government has already taken some remedial actions and will do everything they can to completely rectify the situation.
These difficulties relate primarily to delays in the admission process at the quarantine facility and the lack of timely provision of meals. First of all, I must unreservedly apologize to every returning citizen who has had to endure less than favorable conditions. The issues encountered are completely unacceptable. I asked Minister Christopher Tufton and Minister Matthew Samuda to visit the quarantine facilities today to get a first-hand view of the situation. Arising from the visits, the government has already taken some remedial actions, and we will do everything we can to completely rectify the situation. We have streamlined the process at the airport, with the processing time cut by half compared to the previous cohort that arrived on Wednesday last week. Many persons, spanning several ministries and agencies, have worked tirelessly to get our citizens home. It is extremely unfortunate that this situation has dampened the happiness that our citizens would have had upon returning home to Jamaica. The government is very sympathetic to the plight of overseas Jamaicans who wish to return home, many of whom are under severe hardship. As a result, the government has gone above and beyond to facilitate the return of our Jamaicans. This has stretched the capacity of our public health system and our frontline workers. The reality is that we now have over 600 persons in quarantine and isolation facilities to manage. We also have 4 quarantine areas in St. Mary and many other active contact tracing exercises ongoing. This while conducting all the other public health duties.
Prime Minister Holness further stated that out of compassion and due to an overwhelming desire to bring Jamaicans home, the government is now beyond their quarantine capacity, and it will therefore be at least 14 days before they are able to accommodate any sizably additional cohorts.
While we are working assiduously to bring home our citizens, it is clear we cannot continue to overextend ourselves as this increases the risk both to the general public health and our returning Jamaican citizens. We have to work within our capacity while we seek to build additional capacity. We are now beyond our quarantine capacity. It will therefore be at least 14 days before we are able to accommodate any sizable additional cohort. I have directed the ministries and agencies involved to use this period to explore ways of rapidly scaling up our capacity, both in accommodations and logistics, to ensure a positive experience for all. Over 8,000 Jamaicans have already applied to return home through the JAM COVID-19 system. To accommodate this number, utilizing state quarantine would mean an inordinate delay in their return. The government is already working towards the development of a home quarantine solution, incorporating technology that will facilitate the geofencing and monitoring of persons re-entering Jamaica to ensure that they stay in their designated quarantine area. We continue to manage this process in a manner that keeps all Jamaicans safe. We again thank you for your patience and understanding, and I wish to assure Jamaicans overseas who wish to return home that your government is working assiduously to get you back home as soon as possible.
Still making Melo TV news, Shadow Minister on National Security Fitz Jackson is calling on the government of Jamaica to prioritize and plan adequately for the arrival of over 1,044 Jamaican cruise ship workers who are due to return to the island this Sunday on board the Royal Caribbean Adventure of the Seas cruise ship liner. Mr. Jackson pointed out this is necessary to avoid potential chaos and health risks if the proper protocols are not observed. He added that he had raised concerns with Prime Minister Andrew Holness during the sitting of Parliament on Tuesday, but did not receive a satisfactory response at that time. He is demanding that a comprehensive plan to bring these countrymen safely to port and processed be prepared ahead of their landing. Still in news tonight, Minister of Local Government and Community Development Desmond McKenzie is urging owners and operators of community bars and taverns to fully comply with the requirements governing their reopening announced earlier this week. In a statement released today, Minister McKenzie said it is important to emphasize that this reopening period applies only to community bars and taverns. Sports bars, nightclubs, and other places of entertainment where alcohol would normally be sold will remain closed as per the disaster risk management orders. Minister McKenzie also expressed that this serves as a reminder to proprietors of the community bars and taverns that the reopening of their operations is conditional, and at the end of the 2-week period that starts on May 19, the levels of compliance by owners and operators island-wide will be assessed by the teams already on the ground. Thereafter, a decision will be made as to whether community bar operations will continue. The minister added that the government fully understands the need for people to earn a proper living and to regain their financial footing, and that is exactly why full compliance with the rules is critical. Those who breach the protocols will not be allowed to remain open and threaten the complete closure of community bars island-wide. In news from St. James, Mayor of Montego Bay, His Worship Homer Davis, says in light of bars being allowed to reopen come May 19, the Public Health Department, the police, and the municipal authorities will now have an integral role to play in ensuring that owners operate in accordance with the protocols put in place by the government.
Yes, it is a very, very big industry here in Montego Bay. But my concern, really, I know the government has indicated that come the 19th, the bars will be allowed to reopen for 2 weeks, but the public health, the police, and the municipal officers will have an integral role to play in certifying whether or not those premises or those establishments are up to standard.
The St. James Public Health Inspectorate expressed that they suspect that they will be going to these establishments to do assessments to ensure that bar owners are operating under the given protocols to safeguard themselves and customers against COVID-19. Still making Mellow TV news tonight, Jamaica Labour Party JLP councillor for the Flanker Division in St. James, Senator Charles Sinclair, is urging the Tax Association of Jamaica, TAJ, to put a system in place to facilitate in-branch payments of property taxes as part of measures to assist residents in the parish. Senator Sinclair, who was addressing the St. James Parish Council during their meeting held yesterday, said that residents have complained that they have difficulties making their payments online following the TAJ's announcements of suspended in-branch payments of property taxes.
They are asking that these payments, they have given options for payments. They have provided the option of persons paying property tax and the application for motor vehicle certificate fees, that those be paid online. I have not seen any other option that has been offered to the citizens of Jamaica who are interested in making their payment of property tax or to seek to have their motor vehicle examination fees paid. Now I'll focus primarily on the property tax, Mr. Chairman, because the property tax is what provides the greatest source of revenue to the local authorities, and it is the property tax that pays the street light bill, and it is the property tax that provides for garbage collection. So we're talking about two services that the population is greatly interested in. When we go to our Citizens Association meetings, people talk about street light not working, and if we're not paying the bill, JPS tends to use that as being a reason for not conducting repairs. And when the garbage is not collected, then you know that that is another issue. And as you commented in earlier in relation to the garbage collection, it seems to have been going fairly well up to this point in time. We don't want a fall off in respect to.
Senator Sinclair further outlined that if persons are unable to process their property taxes based on the TAJ's restrictions, this will impact the development process of the parish.
But let me make it even more significant. The process in the building application, when a person wants to submit a building application or a subdivision application to the local authority for consideration, they have to attach their up-to-date property tax certificate. So if you're not able to pay the property tax because you are restricted to making payment online, then you're also going to be impacting the development process, which makes it even worse because then that is also a driver of the economy, where persons apply for building permits, unless we are going to take the position as a local authority. And it would be inimical to ourselves doing that because we are the local authority that has responsibility for streetlight and garbage collection. But what has been mandated by the TAJ is causing a lot of concern. I have been told stories that in one day at the Montego Bay Collectorate, persons who turned up, and when you put a value on what they wanted to pay, it exceeded $1 million in one day, they were turned back. Stories have been brought to my attention of persons reaching to the cashier. So they stood in line, observed social distance, waited on their turn for hours, got to the cashier to make the payment, and the payment was refused.
Senator Sinclair says that he is asking the Parish Council or the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development to request that the THA review their position taken regarding St. James in this matter.
And I'm asking that this municipal corporation, if we could write to the THA, or we could ask of the Ministry of Local Government to ask the THA to review their position in respect to St. James in particular, because of the difficulties that exist in this parish regarding the payment of property tax. Persons who are interested and they want to go and stand and practice the social distancing and other measures that the health department would recommend, let them go and pay the property tax. Don't refuse the property tax. Or alternately, they open another station somewhere
They can.
in the parish of St. James, even if it is for a temporary period of time. So
we have several outstation police stations.
that is what I'm saying.
We could collect taxes there.
Or alternately, they have 2 mobile units.
Yes.
The Ministry of Local Government
Yes.
ensure that
Yes.
that those mobile units be sent to St. James and the collection be facilitated.
Meanwhile, Tax Administration Jamaica, TAJ, is advising the public that effective May 18, all tax offices and the Stamp Duty and Transfer Tax Office will be open to the public from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. TAJ's business offices, including the corporate office, will close at 4 p.m. The adjustment in the operating hours of TAJ's offices is in response to the recent declaration by Prime Minister Andrew Holness regarding adjustments to the island-wide curfew that came into effect on May 13. The Portmore Tax Office's suspension of Saturday operations will continue until further advised. The tax authority has taken a decision to resume the inline collection of property taxes effective Monday, May 18. This means that taxpayers may visit any tax office to pay their property taxes. However, persons are still being encouraged to continue to utilize the online option that provides a convenient stay-at-home alternative. Several other offices can also be accessed online at www.jamaicatax.gov.jm to include all business-related tax filing and payments, payment of traffic tickets, and TCC applications. For further information, persons can contact the TAJ's Customer Care Center at 888-829-4357 or visit www.jamaicatax.gov.jm. Continuing with the news, opposition spokesman on energy Philip Paulwell says he, as well as the public, is very concerned about the prevailingly high price of fuel that has resulted in Jamaicans paying more for petroleum products while oil prices are tumbling around the world due to weak demand caused by the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. In speaking with Our News team, Mr. Paulwell said, in light of the tremendous hardship the country is facing as a people, the government should be doing more for the consumers.
The public is still very concerned, as to myself, about the prevailing high price of fuel at the pump for transportation purposes. We are very concerned because the price of oil worldwide has fallen dramatically over the last 2 months. I have asked the chairman of the PAAC for us to do a special probe at that committee on the matter. One of my primary concerns is the fact that we still have in place, in that pricing mechanism, an amount for hedging, which has not happened since 2016. I think in light of the tremendous hardship that we are facing as a people, the government should be doing more for the consumers. And that is one area that I think that they need to remove the taxation and to allow some reprieve to the Jamaican transporting public.
For the week of May 7 to 14, the latest price index published on the state-owned oil refinery Petrojam's website shows 87 gasoline up from $116.92 to $117.17, 90 moves up from $119.75 to $120. Automotive diesel is up from $109.40 to $109.65, and kerosene has moved up from $91.88 to $92.13. In news from Manchester, 5 of the accused who appeared before the Manchester Parish Court earlier today to answer to fraud charges were found guilty, while 2 of their co-accused were set free. Those found guilty are Sonja Elliott, former Deputy Superintendent of the Manchester Municipal Corporation, his wife Tasha Gay, Lendale Roberts, former Temporary Work Overseer, David Harris, former Secretary Manager, and Dwayne Sibley's a carpenter, all from Manchester. The court handed down a not guilty verdict for Elliott's mother, Myrtle Elliott, and Radcliffe McLean, a bank teller, who are both charged jointly with the 5 accused. The 5 accused were found guilty following their involvement in a scheme that defrauded the Manchester Municipal Corporation out of cash amounting to over $400 million. The hearing was streamed live and saw Justice Anne-Marie Granger handing down the guilty verdicts. Members of the media were barred from the proceedings. The 5 accused are to return to court at a later date where they will be sentenced. In an update tonight, George Francis, otherwise called Wentico of Blackwood and Summerfield Districts, Clarendon, who was wanted for rape and grievous sexual assault, was captured by the Clarendon police in Smithville in the parish yesterday. The police are urging the other men who are still at large to turn themselves in immediately. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of these men is being asked to contact the Maypen Criminal Investigation Branch at 876-832-2077, Crime Stop at 311, Police 119 Emergency, or the nearest police station. Citizens are being reminded that it is a criminal offense to harbor or create a safe haven for criminals. And those were some of the stories making news. I'll return with other updates as Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says payments are to begin in short order under the government's Send Cash and Care programs. We'll now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.
Need cash? WhatsApp Rapid Loans at